Happy Friday. Thank you for tuning in. I'm Jim with the Brewers Association of Maryland. I am very, very honored today to be joined by not one, not two, not three, but four Maryland breweries. We've got the four host breweries that helped to put on the Collab Project that we've been talking about for the last few weeks. I'm going to get right into it this week. We've got Brendan O'Leary with us from True Respite. He's got to jump very quickly for a meeting, but I wanted to make sure he had a chance to talk to you guys. We're also joined by Jim Wagner at BC Brewing. We've got Matt and Jared at Calvert, and we've got Mike from Idiom, all here to talk to you this afternoon. If you don't know about the Collab Project, visit marylandbeer.org. Check the story on the news page about it. But we are bringing Maryland breweries together to raise funds for the Brewers Association of Maryland through the sale of collaborative beer. We've got a great beer sale going on at beerme.com/store/BAM. You can buy 4-packs of the collaborative beers. You can buy cases, and you can even buy mixed 4-packs and mixed cases. 4 amazing styles of beer. We've got more than 25 breweries involved in this project, and we're really, really thrilled about it. So without further ado, I'm going to let Brendan jump right in to talk about his contribution. Brendan, how you doing, man?
Hi, Jim. How you doing, man?
I'm well. Great to see you. Thank you for taking the time this afternoon.
For sure, man. Thank you for having me.
I love the light show. I missed Goose and Frederick the other night, but I feel like I'm getting the effect right now.
Yeah, well, this is a new house, and I think teenager used to live up here, so now I get the fancy LED lights, and I'm kind of into it.
Very cool. Well, along with all the other brewers that were involved, I want to thank you very much for being a part of this. I'm going to bring them into the stream, too, in case they have some questions about your beer. So here's Jim from BC Brewery. Jim, how you doing?
Good, man. How are you, Jim?
Doing well. I've got Matt. I think his cohort might have just stepped out of the room from Calvert. And I think Matt might be muted, so I'll unmute him. Oh, I can't. And there's Mike from Idiom.
What's up, guys?
So, Brendan, why don't you kick this off? We've got 4 great collaborations. True Respite was the host brewery for the Malty collaboration. Tell us what was going through your mind and what kind of beer you guys decided to produce.
Yeah, when we got the Malty collab, and the idea was that we wanted Maryland breweries to get together to showcase, what Malty as a category. We already kind of had the infrastructure in place for doing a multi-brewery collab, a huge number of brewery collab from having done our What Maryland Does Hazy IPA. That was the 2nd anniversary project we did at True Respite last year. We had, I think, 27 other breweries work on that beer design with us. So what we did is we put together a Google form, and I essentially laid out the foundation for what a recipe might look like with a bunch of different questions, and said, basically, my fellow brewers of brewers in Maryland, let me know what style stout should we. I chose a stout as a base style, and then said, okay, are we going to do an American stout, a tropical stout, an imperial stout, a pastry stout, a foreign export stout, an Irish stout? And I gave all of these options, and so by survey, tropical stout was chosen as the base style. By survey, extra stout was the strength. So this thing will come in at about 7.5%. And then I laid out a bunch of specialty malts, all kinds of questions about the design of how you might put together a stout. And this beer was designed by committee to represent what is cool in Maryland stouts right now. And the result was a 7.5% tropical extra stout. So,
can you share a little bit about what that style is and what it intends to represent to the drinker when they open these cans?
For sure. Tropical stouts are unique in that, you hear the word tropical and you immediately think of fruity, but these are not stouts that actually have fruit added. The tropical character comes from the unique roast of the malts that we use. In particular, this stout is going to lean pretty heavily on a malt called DRC malt. And it is known for giving this impression of like plums and raisins. So the way that the malt is kilned and roasted gives it like the dark color, which gives obviously the stout its roasty character and its dark color. But it also really brings out these stone fruit, sort of dark stone fruit flavors that show up simply because of the composition of the malt bill. And that's really what we're showcasing when we brew a tropical stout.
That's awesome. I was just sharing in the comments here the list of breweries that you had participate. You had some really good representation from across the state. You've got some very interesting breweries involved there, and you've even got a couple of breweries in planning. Did you feel that collaborative process was good? I mean, it obviously worked very well for you the first time when you did what Maryland does. How did it work this time? I mean, do you enjoy that kind of feedback and the ability to kind of put it all out there?
It's neat to get the feedback from each individual brewery. I share the results of that survey with all the brewers who participate, and I've made the recipes for what Maryland does and what Maryland Stouts available to all the brewers who have participated. So it's cool to be able to get that feedback and then share it, obviously. And the process, honestly, I can't think of a better way to do it if you want to have a whole bunch of breweries involved. If you're doing 1 or 2 breweries, you can sit together in a room, but these are COVID times. Like, we're not putting 12 or 15 brewers in a single room to talk about how to brew a beer, and you'd never find consensus anyway. So for the large number of brewers we wanted involved in this project, this is, I think, the best way to do it. And in the end, we just have to take a little bit of editorial privilege and recognize that because I had so many different styles of stout available as an option, if someone comes in and says, yeah, this should be a 14% tropical extra stout with, blueberry puree, I just have to recognize, like, well, that doesn't make a ton of sense in the context of what we're trying to do. So, but fortunately, there really was very little that we had to adjust. A British ale yeast strain was chosen as the yeast strain, and I didn't have the exact strain available that was selected, but I had something similar. So it was small, subtle swaps like that we ended up having to take some editorial privilege on. But in general, the beer that we're presenting is the one that was designed by the group, which I think is really cool. It makes this a neat way to go about the project.
That's really a cool approach to it. For the other folks that are involved in today's chat, did any of you kind of do a similar thing where you had kind of a rough idea of what the recipe should be or would be and then send it out digitally, or was this something that was more traditional where you had everybody meet in person?
I mean, I can start that off. We did almost, it sounds like exactly what Brandon did at True Respite. I had a base hazy in mind, kind of threw that same type of questionnaire out because we had 7 other participating breweries. We talked a lot about what hop varieties we were going to use, what the malt bill was going to be, if we wanted to use any type of adjuncts, fruit, and we all came to a pretty quick consensus. It was almost unanimous on all the questions, which was fantastic because we didn't have to do a lot of bickering back and forth. And what we ended up with is a phenomenal beer. It's a hazy. It's got Mosaic. It's got Galaxy, and then an experimental hop that just somewhat recently got its name, Talus. And man, we used all 3 of those, all late edition hops, dry hopping, and the beer's just got this huge tropical aroma, just real pungent, real powerful. If I didn't say, it comes in at around 6.8. So, by no means a sessionable ale, but it's not over the top with the alcohol content. So we're really pumped about it. It's, the name actually wrote itself. We're calling that beer 8. Sounds pretty simplistic, but the can design, which you'll all see soon, we basically took a coin. It refers to a pieces of 8, which is basically an old real coin. And we split that up and we put each brewer's name in each one of the 8 pieces. And I think it looks pretty nice. Yeah,
it's a very solid label design. Mike, Matt, Jared, what did you guys see with your collaborative input? Was it kind of done remotely, or did you have an opportunity to meet with everybody and talk about how you were going to lay the beer out?
So for us, a few of our collaborators were local breweries in our area, so we could sit down and have discussions with them. And we also put out a Google form for those who were participating as well, to kind of get an idea which way we were going with the sour, whether it was going to be a milkshake style sour, a heavily fruited sour, or a more traditional Berliner or things like that. So we ended up pretty much going on that like fruit heavy sour. We're sitting at about 7.7% alcohol. So also not a very sessionable drink. It's raspberry, blueberry, and black currants with cinnamon and vanilla. So it's just really, really pungent, strong, like almost like a Sia bowl type of vibe to the beer. So it's definitely a unique beer, and it was great to work with everybody. We all sat down after getting feedback from everybody and talked about what we were going to do, what fruit flavors we were looking for, what kind of vibe the beer needed to have, even for the label. It was definitely a different experience, especially like Brendan had mentioned. Usually these are one or two breweries talking about a beer rather than getting 5, 6, or even 13 breweries to get together and come up with a concept that works for everybody. So it was definitely a different experience, but one I wouldn't have passed up.
I don't want to interrupt the train of thought before Jared and Matt get a chance to chime in on this, but I do want to give Brendan an opportunity to share this beer that he's got that they just released or have coming up before he's got to jump. He's only got a couple more minutes with us.
All right, so really super quickly, I'm drinking Bobcat Tmave Pivo. For those of you who are not familiar with what Tmave Pivo is, it's a Czech-style dark lager. It's known for not having really like a bitter, acrid roast character, but more of a like a sweet roast, chocolate character. And this one absolutely delivers on that. It fermented for, I think, 5 weeks in our tanks, and then it conditioned for much longer. To be completely honest, we were having trouble clarifying this thing. It wasn't taken to biofine, and we don't have a filter in house, so it got the benefit of sitting in our tank for an extra couple weeks. And really, I mean, the way that this beer has mellowed out, it's almost like drinking lagery chocolate milk. Our Forest Animal series was started with Fox, followed up, which was a Keller Pilsner, followed up by Bear, which is a Helles lager, now Bobcat, which is obviously a Tmave Pivo dark lager. And we have a dry hopped Italian style Pilsner coming up called Sparrow as well. So this is a series we've had a ton of fun with. This iteration may be my favorite thus far, just because, like I said, it's that soft, chocolatey, smooth, non-acrid, non-bitter roast character, and it's 5.5%, so it goes down like no problem at all. And having a couple of these before, after, during dinner, cooking, whatever, it's not going to ruin your evening or your morning. So this is overall one of my favorite beers we've probably ever brewed. And the artist, Ashley Hauk, she runs a design firm she calls Spicy Mustard Designs. And she just makes absolutely iconic artwork for our brewery that pops off a shelf. And she sells prints of these things outside of the brewery and just the beer too, because she's an artist who specializes in that style art. So we're incredibly thankful to her for bringing her unique flair to these cans. And this series is something that I'm incredibly proud of.
Well, Brendan, BAM is incredibly thankful to you for all the hard work that you do on behalf of the association and all of the membership. And thanks for being a part of this. Have a wonderful weekend. Keep the kids safe during Halloween, and we'll see you soon.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Cheers. Thank you, Jim.
See you later. So to pick kind of back up where we left off, Calvert, when you guys were doing this, we talked about this a little bit. I think it was only 2 weeks ago that I saw you guys. Mm-hmm. We talked a little bit about how your collab came about, but can you give a refresher to the folks who might be tuning in today?
Yeah, sure. So we're doing an Italian Pilsner, and then we reached out to a couple breweries and, brought everybody together and from a distance kind of did the planning aspect, just, one-on-one, talking to everybody. And it really came together. Everybody was kind of on the same page. And then, certain, elements came from certain breweries. Jeff from Denizens had a really good idea for a hop he really liked that he thought would go well in the dry hop, and it did. I mean, it really brought out like a nice lemon peel character and, things like that. So it's like, we kind of all came together with a little bit of feedback, but we were all kind of on the same page. So it was really nice. And then we had everybody in house on the brew day, or on one of the brew days at least for it. We made more than one batch, but it was nice having everybody there, getting to talk shop and then everybody kind of getting their hands on it. So it was an awesome experience. So it was really nice working with the other local breweries.
Looking at all three of your specific collaborations and in general for this pack, none of these beers really were outside of the wheelhouse of anybody's particular specialization. It seems like each one of your breweries kind of was able to nail down on something that either you have a true passion for producing or you're very capable of producing. Is that a general outlook? Could any of you have done the same exact style or would have chosen the same style as your colleagues here? Or was there something that drew you to the styles that were there?
I think for us, it's I don't know. I know traditionally speaking, while there are so many new beers out in the market and everything else like that, a lager frost or a pilsner or anything that falls under the lager category, it really is. I don't know. I enjoy drinking those more than I drink a lot of times some of the other beers that we produce. And it's not to say that the beers we produce are bad or anything else like that, but it's nothing. It's nothing like picking up a pilsner and drinking in the shower. I mean, it's a perfect shower beer.
I mean, I felt like for me, it was almost an excuse to make the beer I wanted to drink, like a nice hoppy coke. Like that's what I want at the end of a shift. And this was the perfect example to demonstrate that, while supporting BAM and at the end of the day, kind of selfishly, I'm going to have something that I'm going to enjoy drinking. So,
yeah, I mean, the same for us. I mean, we run the gamut on styles. We don't traditionally do pilsners and lagers. So our passion would have been either the New England style or the sour side. Stouts would have been up our alley too. But landing on the sour, we do a lot of, pretty funky sours with a lot of fruit. So it was pretty easy for us to pick up the mantle and run with it. And I think anybody really could have done that. Any of these breweries could have, ran with any of the styles and made it a home run, but they all seem to have landed in the right wheelhouse, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I can't disagree with any of that. We were excited to get the hazy style, and even more so excited to work with the other 7 breweries. Some of them friends of mine from a long time ago, and some that this was my first time working with them. And as expected, the camaraderie and the input and everything was fantastic. And it still amazes me, because hazy, it's such an ambiguous and still emerging style. So for all of us to kind of agree on some of the finer attributes of the style was pretty refreshing. And some of the other ideas of technique really came into play rather than raw ingredients, and that was exciting to see. We implemented a few different techniques to make sure we get exactly what we were shooting for, and that's just a big, fruity, tropical, juicy IPA with restrained bitterness.
So, Jim, you talked a little bit about the 8 Hazy IPA. Can you go a little bit more into your description of that beer and kind of what you were going after? I hear you saying juicy and tropical bitterness and all that kind of stuff, but if you could just give us a little bit more of a description. I'm trying to make sure that each of the comments has the beers featured with all of your collaborators so that we get everybody some equal time. So while you're chatting about it a little, I'll throw all that up in the comments.
Sure. Yeah. What we easily agreed upon was the grain bill. So this is, I don't want to say traditionally, but I guess it is in these days. We used a lot of raw oats. We used a lot of malted oats. We also used some hops, as I mentioned earlier, Talus, that really a lot of guys haven't had the chance to work with, or if they have, they really haven't worked with it a lot because it's not that readily available. We should start seeing it in larger quantities in the next couple of years. Just playing with those different hops and trying to get the mouthfeel with the raw grain ingredients that I just described. That kind of gives you that silky, smooth, juicy mouthfeel. We're gonna slightly cut back on the carbonation of this beer. So this isn't a fizzy beer by any means. We want those tropical flavors and that juiciness and smoothness to come out. So it's just going to be a little bit of carbonic bite on the tongue, but not something overly over the top. Alcohol content, we didn't want that to go too high because this is an IPA. It's not a double. It's not a triple. We wanted to make sure that level didn't go too far above 7%. We succeeded. We kept it right at 6.8. Enough mouthfeel, enough hop presence to I think to please any of the hop heads that are out there. So
well, that's great.
It's a fun beer.
It looks like you had a pretty wide variety of collaborators too. We've got some farm breweries involved. We've got a lot of smaller size volume breweries, and you got a lot of experience here with some of the brands that are on there. I mean, we're talking the guys at Full Tilt. You've got Independent, George from Pub Dog. I mean, we're talking some real veterans in the industry between you and George, and some very young guys. How do you feel that kind of blend worked out in the overall collaboration?
Fantastic. As I mentioned earlier, a lot of these guys I've known for a long time. A lot of them worked with me at a previous brewery. And then a couple of them, this is the first time I met them. And either the first time or it's been a long time, especially with COVID. And to just, kind of go over things and discuss things. And I don't care how long you've been in the industry or how little if you're new to the industry, you always have different ideas. And, I never try to look past anyone's ideas on any particular style or technique. And that was real refreshing to kind of get all that input, wrap it all together. Like when Brandon was talking about, I sent out a questionnaire, and it was a pretty lengthy questionnaire because, we're dealing with 7 other breweries going from Southern Maryland to Baltimore City up to Baltimore County. So we were kind of spread apart fairly well. So this was the most effective way of doing it. And, a lot of them were just, some of the questions were real cut and dry, either this or that. But other ones, I asked for a lot of input and luckily got a good bit. And as I said earlier, I couldn't be happier because, we were working on a pretty tight timeline for this beer. And for the conception of what we were going to do to finalizing it didn't take that long. We were all pretty much in agreement. And where we weren't, everybody understood why we went in the direction we did. And I can't say enough about it. It was exciting, and I can't wait for everybody to try the beer. And if future collaborations go like this, I can't complain.
How about Calvert? Let's talk about your Italian Pilsner at a little bit more length. I'm very excited by this beer. One thing I heard stand out from Jim and Mike is that neither of these beers that they're putting out are extremely sessionable, but I get the feeling that your Italian Pilsner is going to be one that everybody can sit back and enjoy a few of, or enjoy a few of if they're in the shower like that.
Yeah, I hope so. So that's the goal. So with the Italian Pilsner, we wanted to, keep pretty close to the origin, Berrifica, Terrifico. We wanted to, be similar to Tipo, but kind of do something a little bit different. So it's sub 5%. It came in right at 4.9, which makes it extremely drinkable, and you could have more than one in the shower. But it's nice, bright, hoppy. It's got those like noble notes that you would expect from the Saaz and the Pearl, and it also has like kind of that nice like slight lemon peel aspect that we got from those Kazbek hops that we used in the dry hop. Overall, it's drinking great. We still have it lagering. Gonna package it here in the near future, but we still like what's happening to it in the tank. So it's gonna be a crushable beer. I plan on having quite a few.
All day, every day, in the shower, in the tub. Soak every once in a while.
Shower beers is a great subreddit for anybody who's out there looking for people to say cheers to after a long night. You can always just take a picture of your beer right in front of your shower head and share it with the world.
It's a great Instagram as well.
Mike doesn't look amused by the shower beer conversation.
No, that's not for me, man.
Well, it's probably hard to drink all those fruited sours in the shower, bro.
Hey, man, I'm going to be 100% honest with you, man. I haven't had a beer in a month and a half.
That's why you're looking so svelte.
Yeah, I'm definitely on the seltzer game a little bit right now, just for the low carb thing. But when I do have some beer, it's going to be on.
Well, why don't you tell us a little bit more about the Fruited Sour collab, and then we'll do a run through the beers that you guys are all excited to talk about because you've all had some great releases in the last few days. And then maybe we can talk a little bit about seltzer also, because I know that Jim's making some seltzers, and are you guys doing a cider up there also?
We do, absolutely.
And then you've got some seltzers popping, and yours, Mike, I have to say, I'm not a seltzer guy. I've been very impressed by the seltzers you were putting out, so keep that up.
Thanks, man.
So tell us about that fruited sour real quick.
All right. So like I said, it's running in at 7.7%. It's a heavily fruited sour. We did a 7-barrel batch of it, and we were roughly 400 pounds of puree for that 7-barrel batch, which is extreme for us. That's about 40% higher than we usually go per batch. Since this was a collaboration, we talked about pushing the bar a little bit higher and making sure that we kind of, just made it something that people needed to try. So we went with raspberry, blueberries, and black currants, and we are adding vanilla and cinnamon in the tank actually happening today. And we plan to can that beer sometime next week and have it ready for this whole collaboration, shipping and pickup here in the next couple of weeks. Like I said, it was a good experience with all the breweries that were involved. We had two of our neighbors, Steinhardt and Smoketown, involved with the conversation as well. Charm City and a few others, Homemade and Streetcar 82. So they all brought great ideas to the table. We talked about every aspect of the beer, how we were going to sour it, how much fruit we were going to add to it, how much cinnamon, how much vanilla, whether it was going to have lactose, those types of things. So we ended up souring it with sour VCA. So that's a lot of the breweries that were involved haven't used it, and we've been using it for some time. So it saves a lot of time in the fermentation process and souring process. So it was a good experience.
I'm impressed that you guys have Charm City Meadworks involved. It was very cool to see them come on board for a collaborative project like this. Did you gain any perspective from kind of maybe their input that you didn't expect?
I mean, when we put out the recipe for final comments, there were some comments from them about body and mouthfeel in the beer. And sometimes, everyone brews differently. Everyone, especially, people who are making mead, look at it a lot differently than a brewer typically would. So, their concern at the time was mouthfeel and body in the beer. But for a sour with that much fruit, you're making the body by adding that much fruit, that much cinnamon, that much vanilla. So, some of those things are pieces that you have to take into account when you're dealing with people who don't do the same styles as you, or even in the same realm of alcohol as you. So it's kind of a learning experience, and you have to have that exchange. You have to explain to them from your point of view why it needs to be this way and why you've done it that way in the past. And then also they come back to you and say, hey, well, this is the way I would do it. And sometimes you just have to find that middle ground to make sure everybody understands where the benefits and detriments are when you do recipe development.
I'd be excited to talk to the team there and see kind of what they may have had as a takeaway from this. I mean, they're making exceptional meads, mm-hmm. And you're absolutely right. The mouthfeel and texture of those products is much different than what you're going to find with the majority of the beers that are on the market. And if you're mm-hmm. coming at it with this experience and maybe preference for really lush, full mouthfeel, even on some of the heavier fruited sours, you're still going to land a little on the lean side of that. So I'd be excited to hear what they're thinking, and maybe they've found a way to integrate some new flavors or something into products that they want to make down the road. That would be kind of exciting to learn about. Like Mike said, these beers will be ready for pickup on November 20th and 21st, and they will be shipping out the week of the 16th to you if you've ordered your beer for shipping. And we're really excited about this collaborative project. It gave all of these breweries an opportunity to learn more about each other, learn more about what they all want for the good of the industry, and for them to step up and show the consumers that this industry is dedicated to one another just as much as they are to themselves. So if we haven't said it enough, I'll say it again. BAM thanks you very much for all your hard work and your dedication to this project.
Glad to be part of it, man.
If you're watching and you'd like to get your hands on these beers, beerme.com/store/BAM. You can buy 4-packs of each individual collaboration. You can buy a mixed 4-pack that has 1 can of each of these collaboration beers, or you can buy cases of either the individual beers or mixes. So please go out and support the Brewers Association of Maryland. These breweries did this for you, and they're excited to hear your feedback. We will be taking orders through the 12th, and we have some awesome content that we're putting together that we've been working on over the last several weeks to accompany these beers while you are enjoying your Thanksgiving holiday. We figured we'd give you guys some great digital stuff to watch while you're at home with your family and staying safe. So keep your eyes open for that. We've got great interviews with each one of the folks that you see on here today. We've got really great interviews with a couple of other members who got together to do some very fun and wacky things last week, and it's going to be a good time. So that's kind of wrapped the Collab Project part. Now I want to talk to you guys about what you're doing in your breweries in the next couple of weeks and what beers you guys are excited about. So, Jim, since you started this circle, let's jump back to you and have you tell us about the beer that you guys released this week.
Sure. Yeah. We just released our, there we go, Peaches and Cream Sour. So this is available. This is available in cans now, and it's going to be going on our serving vessels on draft very shortly, as soon as we free up another tank, which will hopefully happen this weekend. And before I talk about this beer in depth, just throw out a shameless plug here that we're doing a Halloween parking lot party tomorrow. It's from 12 to 6. We're going to have live bands, plenty of beers. We're pulling out some vintage beers, cornhole tournament, plenty of food. So if social distancing will be required, and we will be enforcing that, but we'll have plenty of room, big parking lot. So if you have nothing to do, come on out. We would love to have you there. As far as the beer goes, this is one of my favorite sours we do. I would call it more a tart than I would a sour. So if you're looking for a very mouth-puckering sour, this is not it. You're just going to get a little bit of tartness, and then you're going to get, as the name suggests, peaches and cream. A whole bunch of peach puree went in here to get that peach flavor, and the cream basically comes from a combination. This beer, we do add a little bit of lactose in it, which is milk sugar. It's unfermentable by the yeast, so it kind of gives the beer a creamy, almost, very full-bodied mouthfeel. And we also put some pure vanilla in here as well. So that combination there gives a great flavor profile. 5%, so it's a nice, easy drinking beer. We do have some hops in there, but they definitely take a back seat to everything else going on with this beer. So just enough to kind of balance out a little bit of the sweetness that's definitely coming from the peaches. And yeah, it's a fun beer to drink. And as I said, even if you're not a sour fan, I would give this one a shot, because it's by no means mouth-puckering sour at all.
Sorry, I wanted to make sure that I didn't step on you while I was typing away. I didn't want to have any keystrokes over you while you were talking, so I had everything muted. It seems to be that with a lot of these fruited sours, that tends to be the trend. You're moving more towards the tart than you are like the traditional barrel-aged sour, or something that's going to be really biting on the palate. It's really there to kind of just awaken all the senses and round out what you've got going on.
Well, yeah, especially with this beer. And by no means, is the counterpart of that something we wouldn't or haven't done. I just think, when the general beer drinker hears the term sour, they kind of get fixated on just this one, a tunnel vision type of how the beer is supposed to be. And, there's so many different, attributes to different sours. The biggest being, are you looking at just a slightly tart beer, or are you looking at something that has been, as you kind of suggested, maybe aged for a long time, and really got that pH down during the kettle souring process, and that's going to give you that mouth-puckering sourness. We got one coming out after this one that we call Raspberry Flamingo that's definitely going to be on the more sour end of the spectrum.
That sounds like a good time.
Yeah, man.
Mike, I want to make sure that we get you an opportunity to talk about Full Bloom. You sounded excited about it earlier, and I can't wait to hear about this beer. Why don't you share what's going on with that?
So this is Full Bloom. Full Bloom is a triple New England that measures about 11% alcohol. It is Citra, Ella, Vic's Secret, and Mosaic, and it is amazing mouthfeel. The booze is well hidden. It's got a great aroma of melon, a little bit of dank pine, and lots of berries. It's so smooth. As I said, I don't drink beer right now, but I did have a full glass of this, and I was very happy.
I haven't had any beer, but I did have one of those.
Yeah. I haven't had any beer in a while, but I made myself drink that, and I was happy that I did it. Not to mention, like I said, it was 11%, so I was also very happy because I had the 11%. And you had mentioned some of the other things that we have come out with this week. We actually put out an Imperial Milk Stout, 7.1%. With it also has honey malt in it. So we named it Milk and Honey. It's got this nice transition from honey malt, the sweetness of the honey malt, to the sweetness of the lactose and the chocolate malts. So it's a great beer. We put out a new seltzer in our Burst Your Bubble series, which is our rotating seltzer series at 5.5% alcohol. It's strawberry lemonade. It is super, super strawberry lemonade. We've gone in a different direction with seltzers than most people. Most people are doing like these lean seltzers with just a hint of flavor. And I'm a big fan of, if I say something's going to taste like something, it's going to taste like something. So when we went with strawberry lemonade, it tastes exactly like Crystal Light strawberry lemonade. It's like, that's the flavor profile you get. So I highly suggest you come out and try it. This release is a taproom only release. So it's only on draft. 12-ounce pours for $4. You can't beat it. And then we also threw out a single hop IPA. It's a series as well called Single File. This version was utilizing Grüngeist hops. So it's got this really like passion fruit, tropical red berries, like almost like red raspberries, super ripe red raspberries to the flavor profile. So it's an amazing beer, measuring in about 7.2. As you probably can guess, from the alcohol percentages that I've been spitting off, we don't really do light beer. That's not our thing. We'll make them. We have Vienna lager in the tank right now. We've got a couple of low ABV sours in the tanks right now. But we typically go on the mid to higher range of ABV just because our clientele seems to like to come in and have a beer or two rather than having 5 or 6. So.
Yeah, but you forget it's because they're walking to all those other great breweries near you.
Yeah, that's true too. It doesn't hurt to have 3 other breweries like within a rock's throw of where we're at. So
one of the things that I always find very interesting is we see, all of your breweries are great at putting out new releases on a very rapid schedule, and it's multiple releases often. But Mike, you guys have gotten really good at putting out 3, 4, 5 beers a week for like the last 6 months. How are you keeping up with that?
It's a precarious situation. We have 11 tanks, so we have 11 fermenters on site, and we don't do contracts. We don't do anything, without output. We also distribute. So we're constantly rolling through beer, and it's part of what we want to do. We want to make sure everything's super fresh and we get it out the door and it's sold on shelves. So that way we're rolling out something new the next week and then something new the next week. And we're always rotating through styles too. Idiom's kind of unique. We don't really have core beers. We don't do, flagships per se. We just constantly are innovating and doing new recipe development and new, exploring the styles and exploring the edges of styles, really even blending some. With that comes some challenges, especially when you want to do lagers and, things of that nature. We've been leaning a little bit on using Oslo strain of Kvike for some of our pseudo lagers, and it's been going pretty well. We used that in the Brew for Bam beer that we did. So we've, come to terms with being able to get clean lager-like characteristics out of using Kvike strains. We've also used a lot of Kvike strains in our New Englands. We've used some wild yeast strains in New Englands. We just try to throw something new at every brewing experience so we can keep on learning.
Well, that's awesome. And you're able to give your guest and your consumer a new experience kind of every time they come in. Yeah. As exciting as new releases can be, it does seem as though there are only so many things you can do if you stick to the same yeast lineup or grist bill going into every one of these hazy IPAs or beer, whatever beer it is that you're making. You can only riff so much. Yeah,
true. I mean, and one last thing from our perspective, our 2-year anniversary is coming up at the end of November, and we're doing what we're calling Phrase Day. And it's basically all of our Phrase series beers that were the most popular. We're rebrewing them with all of the knowledge we've gained through the process of brewing that whole series. And we're going to re-release 4 old versions of Phrased beers and then a new version of Phrased, as well as 2 stouts and 2 sours along with them. So we're pretty much going to release 9 beers for that party.
Is that going to be the 11th release of that series?
That will be we're calling it Phrased 1+1 because 2 years. So yes, it's the 11th beer in that series. So
very cool. Well, thanks for joining us today, Mike. I know you've got a split, and I'll see you in a couple days.
Thanks, guys.
Matt and Jared, can you tell me about Dr. Juice?
Yeah. I wish I actually had a. I wish I had a can label for you.
Give me 2 seconds. I'll pull the label up that you sent to me.
Well, yeah. I mean, everybody else had a nice little pretty can in front of them, but this beer actually won't be released until Tuesday of next week.
A little sneak peek.
Yeah, pretty much a little sneak peek, but ready to go. It's fantastic beer. I'll let Jared obviously talk about the beer and kind of his concoction of this, but yeah, it's probably. I mean, last year we won gold in the Maryland's Cup for Playground Legend, and a lot of it was fantastic in the double IPA category, and that beer in itself is fantastic. And we rebrewed it this year, and it did really well. And I think actually we talked about this last time, but we talked with Jared. We started talking about let's just come up with another double IPA this year, and not this year, but just in general, let's just come up with a double IPA to release. And I have to say that I think that this would win. This would have beaten Playground Legend from last year. So I think it's probably the best double IPA we've produced in a very, very, very long time. So
well, if I recall from our conversation a couple of weeks ago, you're going to have some ardent fans who may disagree with any assertion that something can beat your Playground Legend.
Yeah, that said fan is actually on his way to the brewery right now to actually drink it on draft, because I actually guilted him into it, and I was trying to get him here yesterday when we actually put it on draft. But with the amount of rain that we had, he's like, "Well, what am I supposed to do? Get in
kayak home?"
Yeah, exactly. I said yes.
I like the mangoes on the flower stems that look as though they're hand grenades waiting to explode. That's pretty wonderful.
Well, I mean, like, we really wanted to kind of highlight. I mean, we wanted to make a really juicy IPA that had like really nice fruit flavors without actually adding fruit, which I think we've been so spoiled in the past like 15 years as brewers. The array of hops we've gotten our hands on just allow us to basically express almost anything we want without actually having to add that thing. And that's kind of what we wanted to highlight here in Dr. Juice. So the biggest notes I get from it, it's a 8% hazy IPA brewed with Citra, Eldorado, and Motueka. And the biggest notes I get are a fruit called rambutan, which is basically like a tropical lychee. So I get like big notes of that, as well as those huge like mango bursts. So and again, no actual fruit added. It's just from that great hop mix. It comes in, it drinks, really nice. It hides the 8%, which can be dangerous. Overall, I think it's a really delicious, juicy expression of what we do here at Calvert. So.
Well, thank you for clarifying what that other fruit was. I wasn't sure if it was or sea urchin or durian fruit.
It's a cool fruit. If you're ever in South America, look for it. It's one of the coolest fruits of all time. Just don't bite into it. There is a seed in the middle. You'll regret that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the seed is poisonous. My wife found out that on the hard way. She immediately had to spit it out. But yeah, no, it's a really delicious beer. I'm liking it. I can't wait to release it next week. Yeah.
So is that like a fleshy fruit, or is that something that's custardy like a pawpaw?
No, it eats almost exactly like a lychee. Like, so it looks like a lychee. It just tastes slightly more tropical than a lychee. So, but I mean, like, if you looked at it without its skin on, that like hairy red skin it has, you'd actually think it was a lychee.
Very cool.
So we have one other beer too. So we wanted to. It seems like the style has gone away. almost overnight. And I've been seeing a lot of local breweries actually putting it out. But we also brewed another West Coast IPA. It's I don't know, like from both Jared and I's background with coming to Maryland again, from California. I mean, it's just one of those things that's been missing, I think, in our portfolio and just even in the scene. You know, I think that with all the new breweries that are in and around, I think everybody's not chasing. I mean, just doing anything we can, right? And we listen to what the consumer says. And if the consumer says, hey, give us a hazy IPA, then we give them a hazy IPA. It's kind of straightforward, I think. But again, similar to to our Pilsner that we're brewing, is nice West Coast style IPA. It's actually called In My 6.4. I didn't send you the image of that, but it's called In My 6.4, 6.4% ABV and 64 IBUs, as West Coast style as you can get.
Yeah, it's more of a new school West Coast. So, obviously, with our backgrounds, in California, brewing over there, it was, there's been a huge change in what West Coast IPA means. It used to be a little more malty. Now it's a lot brighter, crisper, but with even more hop aromatics and flavor, and then like toning down that bitterness. I mean, there was almost like a bitter war for a while there, and then now it's like kind of taken that down a notch and actually found like kind of a nice medium, and that's what we were looking for. I mean, as we said, only 64 IBU, but using classical hops, Simcoe, Eureka, Cascade, giving you those really like good West Coast elements, but our hop regiment is done a little differently to express more of like the pineapple you can get from those hops, as well as, of course, still getting those traditional flavors of, pine and resin and all of that. But yeah, just a really bright, delicious beer that we'll also be releasing next week. And then again, yeah, as Matt said, kind of selfishly, like, after leaving the West Coast to come back home here, it's, I miss a good West Coast IPA. And so I'm excited to be able to have one readily available.
It's kind of weird to see this circuitous thing that's going on with how the approach for what beer was called the IPA is now being treated. You had people on the East Coast who took this West Coast innovation and, all these really, really dank, rich, earthy flavors, huge aromatics, and then squeezed all the juice they could get out of them. And then all of a sudden you have this whole takeoff that becomes, the New England or the Northeast IPA. By making it hazy and only focusing on the juice elements. And now it's nice to hear that there's this turn back to the West Coast where we need a little bit of the bitterness to come back into the game, but maybe still find a way to juice those hops and aromas to the forefront.
I don't think we need to make it taste like totally 1995 or anything like that. I think there's so much that we've learned in the past 20 years that we can employ while still bringing back all of those classic elements. Yeah.
Now, Jim, in your history, you've brewed a lot of really dank West Coast IPAs, a lot of that traditional style. You're doing that West Coast IPAs at BC occasionally. How do you feel about that? Are you liking this interplay between kind of the East Coast juice craze versus the West Coast kind of earthy resinous craze?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one thing that we that's kind of one of our pillars at BC is we do as many different styles as we can. And we're fortunate enough to have 24 taps. So when you come in, you're going to run into the entire gamut from, a big Russian Imperial that might have been aged on a bourbon barrel all the way down to, a beer that's 4.4 and super easy drinking with a hint of lime. And everything in between. But back on the IPA styles, you've seen so many, and I don't want to say trends, but you've seen sub-styles of the IPA, come about, and I embrace them all. You got people, a hazy's not a true IPA, or, a West Coast, they're dead and they're not good. You need to look at each one almost as its own individual beer. And, and as they should, because, a well-brewed West Coast IPA is not going to taste or look or give you any type of mouthfeel like a hazy that we're brewing these days. So, I always enjoy the different aspects within the main style, if you will. But it's and it's fun to go back. We do one, we call it Throwback IPA. And, it's nice. It's refreshing to have a beer that you can kind of like you were saying, 1995, you can think back, yeah, this is what it used to be like before the hazies hit the scene. And we have a lot of customers that really appreciate that. And a lot of the comments we'll get is, and again, not saying it's right or wrong, but this is how an IPA should be. This is what I like. This is what I remember, 15 years ago. And, if we can provoke that type of thought, and if that, that's the biggest compliment I can get if I get comments like that on that particular substyle.
Are there any consumer demands that you guys are hearing kind of at the production level that you're thinking are really going to start being hot hits, or things that are taking off, kind of things that you're looking forward to in the next few months?
It's funny. It ebbs and flows. It really does. I mean, I'm really surprised the lack of Weizens that I've seen from any brewery. We've done one. It's been a while, but it seems like the demand's really fallen off the face of the earth for those, which inspires me to go ahead and do one and get it out there soon. And then, you always get the talk about all the pumpkin beers, especially this time of year. Oh my God, it's flooded. The market's entirely flooded.
I think I just heard Matt's head hit the table.
Our pumpkin beer has been our biggest seller in the last month. And I enjoy brewing them. I like pumpkin beers personally. I understand that people that may not. I've been brewing one now for 22 years. My first recipe was 22 years ago. And I just absolutely think that, I think we're more in love with the spice than we are the actual pumpkin flesh in the beer. Again, there's nothing wrong with that, but I always tell people, you like pumpkin pie because of the spices. If those spices weren't in there, you're probably not going to eat a slice. But again, going back to that style, there was this uprising where everybody and their mother brewed one. And then there was this time just a couple years ago where this, almost every brewery, no, I refuse to do one. Why? Well, everybody does one. Well, do it better. So, I embrace them. I'll always be trying to get one out around this time of year, especially after the tremendous amount of feedback we've gotten from Horseless Headman that we just put out.
Yeah, the pumpkin craze, I'm actually quite surprised to see as voracious a demand this year for the pumpkin beers as I have seen. Absolutely. Because I recall very, very keenly 4 years ago, there wasn't a retailer in the state that wanted to buy another pumpkin beer because they had 37 labels on the shelf already.
Yep.
They had the one that stood out to me was like the $3.99 Shipyard 20-ounce bottle, right? Like, how in the hell can anybody compete with that?
Right. Exactly. Right.
Just to touch on to what Jim was saying too, it's we actually you talked about it earlier. Is we do something very similar with our sour, right? So sour, the word it's when I wanted to add a sour into our portfolio, I know that the general consumer, or I should say the new to craft beer consumer, is looking at the word sour as a negative and is looking at it as a term of not the pride that goes into brewing something like that, but more so just like, I don't drink sours. And well, in reality, you do. And I can't tell you how many times that I've have had the opportunity to actually educate a lot of new drinkers into saying, all right, well, the word sour shouldn't be kind of one of those barriers that you get put in front of you that makes you not want to try it. Look more outside of that word and look for the rest of the product. And something that we've done, Jim, is that instead of put sour or kettle sour onto our I Just Crush a Lot, it says tart ale. From day one when we released that product, it was tart ale. It was more on the marketing side to ensure that obviously we didn't have those barriers in front of us and people are more comfortable with the word tart. But to I guess both of you guys are Jim B. But to Jim, your point on the trend aspect is, there's probably as many styles of IPA now as there are of lagers, right?
Right.
And I also see that in the sour category. It's almost like a new burgeoning kind of field, if you will. And I know, again, each one of us has personal preferences, etc. I am not a huge fan of adding lactose or milk sugar or any other keyword you want to use to that into a sour. Maybe more so just because we've been in this industry now for so long that some of us who have actually had traditional sours, it would basically you'd have a monk, basically wanting to do something to themselves if you were to add lactose into that beer. And regardless, though, it is a burgeoning part of this industry. It is absolutely one of those parts right now that the consumer, which is always a good thing, the consumer now is actually going to that category. And that consumer, as being a day zero drinker, can pick up a product that might, instead of saying sour, is a fruited ale, is a lactose heavy product that is heavily fruited. But down the road, they're going to pick up one of those traditional Cantillons or Penne Ale or any of those products that the origin actually story comes from. And I still think that with the lager and the IPA aspect is, the more we're able to actually get in front of the consumer and get more people drinking beer, period, I think the better this industry and as a whole is going to be, because, we shouldn't look at each other as competitors. We should be looking at as a support function for all of our growth. And we should be looking at saying, okay, well, where is the trend? If the trend is in mixed cocktails, well, how do we actually incorporate that into our repertoire so that we're capable of actually giving the consumer what they're actually looking for, not what we feel as though they are looking for?
I think you're hitting on a very, very important point there, Matt, because, not to beat a dead horse, but this idea of the West Coast IPA, I got into selling craft beer at a time where you were like dragging people over the bar to say, you will like this, I promise, just try it. It's not that bad. Like, Anheuser-Busch really did a number on your brain when they gave you the bitter beer face commercial. And we do take that, remove that from your vocabulary and show you what bitter means in beer. And it's not a derogatory thing.
No.
We're very fortunate because brewers have become innovative and have found ways to utilize some of these things that are far less traditional, like lactose, to introduce the palate of people who have shown a preference for mixed cocktails or sweetened drinks or things like that. Give them an entree into craft beer and then give them that opportunity to explore what flavors exist outside of the first or second can that they try.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely. I can't tell you how many times that in the field I've gone up to people and asked what style of beer they like. And it's always something that, it's especially newer drinkers, it's more the stouts, it's porters, etc. It's something that's a little bit, darker. And it's really interesting when you start talking and this is again the segue into, as long as we're able to get more beer in front of people to start trying, they'll come to the good side, right? But regardless, I can't tell you how many times I've gone in front of a person, asked what they actually don't like. What style of beer do you not like? And then given them a New England / juicy hazy, whatever you want to categorize that, and say, well, try this. Maybe this will change your mind. And it's worked almost every single time. I've actually, again, I tried to, when pre-COVID, I'm used to having like larger gatherings, and anytime that we'd go to a birthday party, mine, someone else's, anyone that I was actually invited to, I would bring a keg of beer or I'd bring multiple cases of product. And I can't tell you how many times I've reformed non-beer drinkers into drinking beer, because a lot of times, again, you just have to understand what the market is and who your general audience are. And, it's such a fun thing to do. But, I've turned a lot of people. I've had a person come up to me that actually, it was so funny. They came to the brewery. I had spoken to his wife about a hazy IPA, and I said, hey, you don't like IPAs, but try this. And I said, it's on me. I'm like, just try it, etc. The next day at the party, ironically enough, she came with her husband, and her husband actually thanked me for turning her onto IPA so that now he can actually have more IPAs in his house. So it's just, again, it's a fun little story, but again, beer is meant for everyone. It's not meant for, a select few.
That's it. We need to get it into more people's fridges. I also think that all four of us that are still here should find a way to get some vestments and become beer evangelists and run around and spread the good word like we've been doing for years and years and years.
That's right.
We should just make it official and come up with our own ordainment series.
Beer church.
Yeah.
$5,
I'll send you a certificate.
That's right.
All right, guys. Well, thank you very much. It's 4:00. I know everybody's getting ready to get spooky and go out trick-or-treating. So I hope everybody has a safe weekend. Keep your families safe, and tune back in next Friday. If you want to get your hands on the collaborative beers that our friends talked about today, visit beerme.com/store/BAM. Check out BC Brewery online. Check out Calvert Brewing Company. Please be sure to visit Idiom and True Respite as well. And follow all these great breweries on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, wherever you can find them, because they've all got great stuff for you. And they all have great things going on. Jim, Matt, Jared, have a great weekend, guys. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much.
Cheers, guys. Thanks for having us.